Good job, you guys, and especially Radonna back here. Let's hear it for Radonna on the keyboard. Well, today I brought a few things in order to impress you with what a success I have been in life, even from my younger days. Now, I want to start off showing you my bowling trophy. I won this in junior high school. I don't know why I wasn't a big bowler, but I signed up for a bowling tournament, and I scored higher than anyone here has ever scored. I scored a 133 to win this when I was in junior high school. So that's just one of many, okay? I have one here from 1970. The summer before my sophomore year in high school, I went to a basketball camp. They had them back then. And on the night of handing out the awards, they had one for the best rebounder in the camp. And all 5'6" of me was named the #1 rebounder in the camp. You can see it, it's maybe right on there. All right, that's pretty impressive. Now, I have a couple of medals here that I want to show you. Make sure I get the right one for each one of them. Okay, this one here is from when I was in about the 8th grade, and I was in what's called the Junior Olympics they had in Miami, Oklahoma. And I was a high jumper, and I was 5'6", and I high jumped 5'6", my own height. Hard to believe, huh? That actually happened in real for sure. Then I have one from the 120 high hurdles in the Miami Olympics. Now this was not the Special Olympics, it was the Junior Olympics. I was about to say that wrong, but anyway, so me and a friend and I were hanging out there, and we saw them lining up for the 120 high hurdles. Well, I'd never been in the 120 high hurdles. They were really high. I couldn't hurdle anything, but there was only one person signed up. So we ran down there real fast, and we signed up, and he got 3rd, and I got 2nd, and the guy who was an actual runner got #1. And so that's how I won that right there. Now, here's something I'm really, really proud of. This is my letter jacket from when I was a sophomore in high school. Many a cute girl was asked to wear this, but they refused. So there's that deal. Now, I do have a medal that I'm very proud of here. I guess proud of, that's not really the right word. I'm thankful for, because I didn't do that much to accomplish it. But in 1972, our team went 27-0, won state championship up at the Fairground Arena in 3A, and when you walk out on the court afterwards, there's a guy in a suit, and he says, "Congratulations, son," and they give you that little medal right there. And then here's what my little plaque they gave me, and then here's when the day before in the semifinal, I only got in when we got way ahead, okay, so that's why I can't take credit for this too much, but I got in, and they took this picture, and it was on the front page of the sports section on the Saturday of the finals, and all the seniors on the team that were really good were mad at me because my picture was on the front and I hardly played, except, when we got way ahead. Now, I would like to, show you, the certificates of when I was in the Honor Society, or my plaque for being the high school valedictorian, but those things didn't happen, so I cannot show you those things because that was not what I was. But, all of us enjoy trophies or awards or plaques or medal or honors that we've received in our lives because they're sort of indicators that make us feel like how successful we are, right? And experiences of success can affect our sense of self-identity. I mean, all of us would rather see ourselves as successful, as a high achiever, as probably above average, important, right? We all want to do that, even if we have to do things that are maybe disingenuous to make us feel that way. Now, a lot of you are old enough to remember when pagers were really popular. It seemed like everybody had a pager on their belt. And pagers were sort of a status symbol. A pager said that you were a very important person. So important that you needed to be able to be reached at all times. Now, here's a true story a guy told me. He was playing in a softball tournament over at Reeves Park, and he noticed it seemed like every guy had on their, attached to their, softball uniform belt, a pager. And he felt kind of, inferior. And so he said he felt like such a loser. He went out to his car, and he got his garage door opener and hooked it to his belt so he could look as important as everybody else. At my 20-year high school reunion, somebody drove up in one of these things here. a DeLorean. And this guy's name was Mark Brandt, and he actually came to our 40-year reunion, which some of you guys didn't know who he was then, but he was a real quiet, kind of shy guy. And at our 20-year reunion, he drives up in one of these. And I don't know if he was like to say, look how successful, look how wealthy I am, or what. We're all going, where did he rent that thing? You know, we all kind of thought we saw through it. But I think all of us would agree that there's something inside of us that wants other people to think that we're important, to think that we're successful. We want other people to think that we're somebody. Now, all of us have this need to some degree, but some people are just consumed by this. It's like their whole sense of self-identity is wrapped up in what they perceive other people think of them, or what they hope other people think of them. And today we're going to address this issue in a talk I'm calling, Do You Get Down When You Don't Feel You Measure Up? Now, Phil came in last week, but before that we had 2 weeks talking about this. This is the third and final week. Next week I'm going to do a Christmas talk, but this is our third and final week in our series on identity theft. And we've said that identity theft is a huge problem today. 17 million Americans had their identity stolen last year. You know, billions and billions of money was lost. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I walked in my bank and I saw a sign for identity theft insurance. Now, a person's identity, apart from those legal issues that we just talked about, a person's identity is basically who they are. And there are many facets that can make up a person's self-identity. You know, in our culture, when you get married, the female usually takes on the name of their husband. And that's got to be weird. You know, for 20, 25 years, you're Janice Story, and then all of a sudden you're Jana Martin. I mean, you're the same person, but your identity has changed a little bit. I remember one time I did a wedding for somebody who had been in my youth ministry. Her name was Christina. I can't remember her last name, but it was something like Brown or Smith. It was real common. And she got married. Her name became Christina Hockenslacker. That is the truth. I remember telling her, you must really, really like this guy to change your name to Hockenslacker. But in this series, we haven't been talking about identity theft in terms of someone stealing your Social Security number or credit card information, or in terms of changing your last name. We've been talking about your self-identity in terms of how you feel about yourself. Do you like or not like your physical appearance? You know, how do you think other people see you, and how much does that affect how you see yourself? Do you allow past sins or mistakes to follow you through life and continue to plague you and affect how you feel about yourself today? Those are the kinds of things that affect your sense of self-worth. And today we're going to talk about how you define success, how that affects you in your life. Because how you define success speaks to that matter of who's really important, who's somebody and who's not. Now, don't ever, take from that the Bible or that God are anti-success. Some people seem to think that. In Joshua 1 verse 8, God says, if you will live according to the wisdom contained in the scriptures, then you will be successful. Proverbs 16 verse 3 puts it this way, commit to the Lord whatever you do and your plans will succeed. I mean, God doesn't want to see his people failing and flopping through life. He wants us to do well. He wants us to succeed. But the all-important question is, how do you define success? What really constitutes true success? Well, today, at the risk of oversimplification, I want to give you two perspectives. First, how our society, how our culture defines success, and then how God defines it. I think the primary definition of success in our culture today could be summed up in 4 A words: appearance, applause, achievement, and affluence. A person's worth is determined by appearance, what you look like. Applause, how popular or well-known you are. Achievement, what you've accomplished, what you've done in life. And then affluence, how much do you have? And you know how early in life this philosophy, this definition of success becomes hammered into the minds of young people? Have you ever been to a playground where a group of parents are sitting around and talking about their toddlers as they play with one another? And they'll say, like, well, when did he learn to walk? And you say, 12 months. They say, oh, mine learned at 10 months. Okay. Can he say his ABCs? Because, you know, if they can't say their ABCs by 2.5, they're not going to get that college scholarship. And that's the way people talk. Now, one of our kids, Michael, really loved basketball plays, and Matthew's played a lot also, but I remember I would sit in the stands, and other parents they're just consumed with their kid was going to be the next Peyton Manning. I mean, their kid was going to be the next Michael Jordan. And on one team that Michael happened to be on, one of the dads, he worked out his kid every day, dribbling, shooting, and he hired the high school coach at Norman High to be a private coach that met with his son every week, 10 years old. And the kid wasn't even that good. He wasn't near as good as my kids were, you know. But some kids, I mean, some parents put so much pressure on their kids to be good at this or get good, you know, good grades and all this. You know, you've seen the bumper sticker that says, "I'm the proud parent of an honor student." My parents never had the privilege of having that on the back of their car. I'd like to see one that says, "My kid got a C, but I'm still proud of him." You know, or "My kid doesn't get good grades, but he's really nice to people." But the message today is clear. You know, when the starting pistol fires, when the gun goes off, when the bell goes off, kids got to do whatever they have to do to win, to excel their teammates, their classmates, their neighbors. You have to be better, you have to be smarter, you have to be faster, bigger, richer, cuter, because all of those things are what makes a person successful. Now, maybe you've seen this character on Saturday Night Live, Kristen Wiig used to do, Penelope. She did this really annoying thing where no matter what someone else said, she always tried to top them. Someone would say, "Oh, this is a really nice house," and she said, "Well, my house it's probably a little bigger than this, probably a little nicer than this." Say, "Oh, I'd like you to meet my friend." She goes, "Oh, I have a lot of friends, probably more friends, probably better friends than you do." And always, have you ever known someone who always tried to top whatever story you say, whatever it is that you do, they have a story that's going to immediately surpass what you just said. Because our society defines success by these 4 A words. We tend to gain our sense of self-identity by how we measure up in comparison in these 4 categories. So, you know, I don't necessarily have to be the most beautiful person on planet Earth. I just need to be better looking than the other people in my school. I don't have to be younger looking for my age than everyone in the world, but just younger looking for my age than people in my family or people I work with or in my circle of friends. That's how we gauge our identity in comparison to other people around us in these categories. You know, if I feel like I'm better looking than most people, then I feel good about myself. If I don't think I am, man, I'm a loser. If I'm more popular or think I'm more well-known than most people, I feel good. If I'm not, I feel bad. If I think I've accomplished more than most people, whether in sports or academics or business, then I'm somebody. If I haven't accomplished more or don't think I have, I'm nobody. If I have more money, either earned or inherited than most people, I feel good. If I feel less, I feel inferior. And you could go on and on and on. That's how we gauge our self-identity and our self-worth according to our culture's definition of success. Well, now let's look how God defines success. And I think the place that has the most succinct definition is in Matthew chapter 22. Jesus is asked, "Lord, what is the greatest of all the commands?" In other words, if you could boil it all down, the most important things to success in life, what would they be? And Jesus says 3 things. First one, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Now, that is not what Tony Robbins and Stephen Curry and all these other success gurus say today. This is not what the editors of Success Magazine and the writers of scores of success books on the market today are telling people. This is what Jesus said. Loving God. That's step number 1. And I don't know about you, but it seems to me over the course of my lifetime there have been a lot of success gurus that have come and gone, and they gain popularity, and then they fade out, and their success principles with them. But you know, the wisdom of Jesus has stood the test of time. If a person achieves big-time success, career-wise, financially, athletically, academically, but leave God out of the picture, Jesus would say they missed it. They just absolutely missed the mark. The second thing in Jesus' list of what constitutes true success in life is to love yourself. Love others as you love yourself. That means to be thankful for who God made you to be. I'm not saying every single aspect of who you are, what you look like, or what's happened in your life, but to be grateful for who God made you. To appreciate your unique story, your life story, your unique self. To appreciate that and be grateful to God for that. And to realize that you are of immeasurable value in God's eyes. So how does God define success? One is that we would love Him. Number two, that we would love ourselves. And number three, that we would love others. There is really no true success in this life apart from having and feeling and displaying love toward other people. So here's the tension. We live in a society that every day tells us it's all about how we look, or how popular we are, or how much we've accomplished, or how much stuff we have. And then on the other hand, we have God telling us that it's all about loving Him and loving ourselves and loving others. Now, wouldn't you agree that most people today focus on the left side and give very little, if any, attention to what's on this other side? You know, that's one important thing about coming to church, because we get reminded of the reality of the way things are in our society compared to the true reality before God. And again, remember, God is not anti-success or these things on the left necessarily. Genesis 39 says the Lord was with Joseph and gave him great success. Nehemiah 1:11 says, Nehemiah prays, Lord, give your servant success. So it's okay to pray for success, to do well. Better than praying to fail. Pray for success, but success in God's eyes. Pray for success the way God defines it. Someone has said, I think accurately, failure is succeeding at something that doesn't really matter. Failure is spending your life succeeding at something that in the eternal scheme of things doesn't really matter. It all depends on how you define success, our culture's view or God's view. Well, for the past few weeks, we've been talking about and kind of taking a different look at identity theft. We've talked about things like if we're not careful, they'll sneak in and they will rob you of your true identity, your self-worth, your self-identity. But today I want to end this talk in this series with just a thought from a verse in the Bible that is profound and yet often overlooked. In this verse, Peter refers to the disciple whom Jesus loved. And several times throughout the New Testament, this person referred to themselves as the disciple whom Jesus loved. Does anyone know which person that was? John. And you know who wrote the book of John? John. Now, think about it. He could have referred to himself, like John, who am writing this book. He could have said, John, one of the very first disciples of Jesus. He could have written, John, writer of New Testament books. Or John, executive senior vice president of the disciples, or something like that. Instead, he simply refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved. And in doing so, he clearly looks to Jesus for his source of identity. He said, number one, who I am, I'm a guy lucky enough that Jesus loved me. That's who I am. That's my primary identity, is that I'm a person who's loved by God. He may have succeeded in business, family, academics, we don't know. But those were not his sole identity. They are not the totality of who he was. The most important thing about who he was, he said, I am a person who Jesus loved. And we need to go out into our world every day and say, that's primarily at the core, that's who I am. I'm a person who's fortunate enough that God loved me, and that shaped my life. Why don't we stand, we'll have our closing prayer. Hope you guys can be here next week. We'll have a Christmas service, and it should be good, hopefully. Lord, as a dad to 3 kids, growing up in the kind of culture that we all live in today, Lord, I'm grateful for the opportunity to get to stand up here and talk about what the Scripture says about the true source of a person's self-worth. And these other things just bombard us on a daily basis. And what we look like, or what we have, or what we think we've accomplished, or, these are the things that consume people. And they're important. But Lord, in the biggest scheme of life, in the final analysis, the thing that matters the most is that, first and foremost, we're a person that Jesus Christ loved enough to die for. We're a person that God gave us this gift of life. We're a person who is loved and cared for no matter what we've done. We're a person that is given the gift to be able to love ourselves, to love others, and to return your love. Lord, it's so hard in the society that we live in to keep these things straight. And I'm grateful, God, to have had the opportunity the last few weeks for us to talk about it and think about these things. Lord, so many people today walk around feeling less than what they really are, feeling inferior, feeling like they don't measure up. And Lord, in the important things, every one of us here can measure up. Every one of us can have the life that is truly life, and not this thing that's just a shadow of what real life can be. Lord, I pray that these reminders will sink into our heart and stay with us for a long time to come, and eventually begin to affect our priorities and our values and how we see ourselves, and that we would begin to see ourselves mostly through the lens of how you see us. And God, we will always know that we're greatly loved by you. I pray, God, that you would work in our hearts for this to happen. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, thanks for coming, you guys, and we will see you next time, next Sunday.